Since when has it become socially acceptable to release unfinished games? Like, it's astounding to me. The price of video games is going up, but the quality is considerably going down. And in some cases, I do mean the quality of the game itself, but for a lot of these games, it's the technical side of things that really kill it. I mean, what's so disheartening is that these are AAA companies doing these things. You're supposed to be setting an example for what indie developers should be striving towards. That's how it's always been in the past. But nope. The amount of unfinished AAA trash that we've been getting that's just unfinished and unplayable is at an all-time high right now. It's the indie developers who are actually setting good examples for the AAA people. Hogwarts Legacy, that was a game that I was excited for and also planned to review on this channel. But after weeks, and I literally mean weeks, of just poor performance, crashing, stuttering, unplayable gameplay, it drained me so much that it took away from the entire experience and is just difficult to come back to as a whole. I mean, not to mention the other actual gameplay problems I have with that game, like the combat being a little bit repetitive and the annoying dialogue system. All of this is to say that at least on PC alone, game developers are comfortable releasing unfinished games because they know they can put a day one patch out or just, we'll patch it eventually, we'll do it eventually. No, we need now. Titles like Cyberpunk 2077, Fallout 76, Assassin's Creed Unity, these are all titles that were rushed out of development, most likely due to greedy investors. And once the investors say they want it done by this date, they're gonna try to get it done by that date. And if it's not finished, whatever then. Screw it then, release it still, who cares? The reason why this is such a big problem from a bird's eye perspective as well is because the more we allow this to happen, the more it's just going to be common ground for the gaming industry. Oh, Bethesda released another buggy game? That's fine, that's just what they do, that's just Bethesda, it's part of their brand. Like, no, bugginess and unfinished gameplay should not be part of your brand, Bethesda. How can we get across to these developers that we would rather have a game pushed than having them rush it out of development and change the entire story for a game just to finish up development quicker? And you know, the saddest part is that a good chunk of the blame actually has to go on us as consumers. The only language that these guys speak is money. If we purchase one of their unfinished products, then that is us saying, yes, we subscribe to the idea that we want more of this. The higher ups know that enough people will buy it regardless of the quality, so they just say, let's put it out, whatever happens, happens, and we can patch it to hell as the time goes on. Until we as consumers are able to discern what a finished game and what an unfinished game is, we're gonna keep running into this loop. The main reason I even thought of this whole idea was because I've been hearing a lot of dicey things when it comes to performance for the new Star Wars game. And at that moment, it just dawned to me that right now we're in an era of gaming that it's actually the smart decision to not buy a game on release day, especially if you're a PC gamer. Because you know for a fact that if you're playing a AAA title, you're probably going to have optimization problems, even on the finest machine.
There is tons of people in exactly the same boat as me that can't get the game working, and those lucky ones, or should I say unlucky ones that do get it working, it runs like bantha wank.
So here's the real solution to this problem. As you today, this is what you can do today. Do your research, you know, do your actual hard-earned research to make sure that a game that you're about to play falls in line for what you want to see. Yes, there's going to be the times where a game developer lies, as we've seen before, but don't let that stop you from being a skittish customer. Stop being superfans for people like Bethesda, Blizzard, CD Projekt Red. Every time you pre-order a title for $60 and just sit there waiting, then the game comes out and it happens to be trash and shit, you are part of the problem, because even if you say that the game is bad, even if you leave one of those mean reviews, you've purchased it, and that is just going to funnel into the larger, bigger problem here. This has to be the first step to combating this, because on the company end of things, on the business end of things, you can't be mad at what the investors and the game devs are doing at the end of the day. They're saying, oh, we can make the same amount of money, if not more, for working less on a game. So why would we work more? And you know, while we're on the topic, Indie developers, you are not off the leash either. There are several indie developers who think it's okay to have their games sit in early access for 50 years in order to gain from the quality over price mismatch that can happen when you're dealing with an early access title. Don't get me wrong, there are of course a lot of examples of well-made early access games that are using the system correctly, but there sure is the odd developer who will abuse the system and just use it to make their game shit and still make profit. And again, the solution to this is simply being more skittish and more thoughtful on where you're placing your money in the gaming sphere. Because the second that you take more time to research, look up the game title, look through Steam reviews and really read through them, double check optimization to make sure the game makes any sense to play, then that's when we're gonna get more wise buyers who are gonna stay away from the title that's obviously trying to scam them. And on the case of AAA titles, you can do your research, but I also find it very valuable to do your research on the development itself. Now, everybody has their own personal opinion on part 2 of The Last of Us, but when I heard that the development was up and down and they were treating workers poorly and this and that and the next, I just knew that not a great game can come out of that, so I wasn't surprised when the game was lackluster. Same thing with Cyberpunk 2077. When I saw that that game was pushed back from 2012 or something like that, yeah, I guess I can make a guess that the game is not going to be so good. And what do you know, the game was not so good. Basically what I'm trying to say is if you do your research on the back end, on the behind the scenes of how a game was created, you'll be surprised to see that when the team is healthy and working together on things, the game often turns out to be very, very good.
Even though working on the project has been like super crazy, we haven't really had to like crunch, and we all work like reasonable hours. I think it's the fact that it's just like a nice chill atmosphere.
You know, we try to keep the work environment good and safe and make sure people don't overwork, but to some extent we did not as good of a work on that side for the leads. For me, Alex and Wesley, we both had to deal with a lot of stress, and so like, yeah, it was difficult, but to finally see the results, to hear from people. This dad who played the game with their, I think 9 or 10-year-old kid, and who told us that at the end the kid wanted to become an astronaut.
Anyways, I can go on about this forever, so I'm just gonna start ramping it off. In conclusion, today's sphere of gaming is very dicey. People are understanding that the newer generation is not as hard to please as the older one, and because of this, they're taking advantage of the people who don't know any better. The solution to this is being a smarter buyer. It's just as simple as that. If we hold them accountable for the mistakes that they make and demand that we have better first day releases, then that's what's gonna happen because that's the only language they speak. But when we allow them to walk on us and release buggy, broken games and then just laugh it off as their brand, and then that's when it starts to become a problem because it's too easy for them to just replicate that and just keep going with that. Don't let that be you. Anyways, I'm gonna call it there. Probably gonna wait a solid 4 or 5 months before I buy Star Wars so that I can actually play it when I get it for $70, $80. But if you enjoyed this video, like the video. If you want to subscribe, subscribe.
Spend all day on the phone anyhow.
All that good stuff. I'll see you next Sunday where I'll probably be talking about more incoherent nonsense. And yeah, thank you for watching. Bye, I'm leaving now, you know. You could have changed the video a long time ago, huh? You're just sitting here watching me fade out, huh? That's crazy. You're a real one though. I mess with it.